welcome to episode number 109 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox, PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. This is Jason Fidelli, the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox, PHL The Gambler, coming to you after a week off. I know 2 weeks ago, I had said, I'll be back next week, and then there was no episode. Sorry about that. I was on a planned vacation with my family. Did not put two and two together in my fatigue as I was recording that episode. Probably should have mentioned that I wasn't going to be on this week, but hey, sorry about that. I'll make up for it this week, and believe me, I will. Huge interview in the first segment of the show. MatPat, Matthew Patrick of the Game Theorists, one of the longest tenured YouTubers there is, joins me to talk about YouTube Game On this weekend at 4 p.m. Eastern. 2 hours of YouTube gaming-focused content, celebrating all things gaming, and it gets a little out of the box, and we'll talk about that, as well as his channels, the Game Theorists, Film Theorists, and Food Theorists. Then we'll get into just the esports roundup from the last 2 weeks. We'll talk about Rainbow Six. We'll talk about the Overwatch League, which started up again. We'll talk about the FGC, both local and a little more nationally. And then finally, we will end with Gamescom. Gamescom happening this week over there in Germany. Talk about opening night live and everything that was revealed there, plus 3 more games that I think you should have your eye on going into the holiday season. But before we do any of that, let's get into the 6 in 60 seconds. The Rainbow Six Siege Major Berlin ended with the European League's Rogue upsetting Brazil's FaZe Clan in the finals, winning 2 of the 3 final games to claim victory 3-2. The 2023 Call of Duty League schedule has reportedly leaked, with the first major scheduled for December and the championships slated for June. That will be a 2-month advance in the calendar. Normally it starts around January. The field for the 2022 Valorant Champions Tour Championships is set, with Optic Gaming, XSET, and 100 Thieves qualifying from North America. Elsewhere, Sony has announced a raise in the price of PlayStation 5 consoles in multiple regions around the world, citing inflation and production issues, though the US will be unaffected. Capcom has unveiled its plans for the 2022 Tokyo Game Show, including a general presentation at 10 a.m. Eastern September 15th, and a Street Fighter VI specific show, 11 a.m. September 16th. And finally, Warner Bros. And Player First Games has announced that Multiverses, the free-to-play platform fighter, has surpassed 20 million unique players in its open beta. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. Yes, folks, those were your 6 in 60 seconds on the week. Gamescom opening night live, obviously dominating all of the headlines. We will get into that later in the show. But our first segment of the evening, YouTube Game On, a 2-hour interactive live stream celebrating all things gaming, is happening this Saturday, August 27th, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern for here in the city. If you're listening to this on the radio, it's happening as soon as this episode stops airing. So go check that out over on YouTube. YouTube Gaming. Multiple huge creators will be there. Ali A, Markiplier, Myth. Basically, if you've heard of them from YouTube, they'll most likely be there, including one that I have the honor of interviewing right now. This is a creator that I have been watching since his inception over 10 years ago. I think I've watched every episode of at least 2 of his 3 channels. So I'm very excited to speak with him here today. This is Matthew Patrick of the Game Theorists, but you know him as MatPat. MatPat, how the heck are you, sir?
I am doing great, and I'm honored by that introduction, although I gotta yell at you a little bit for throwing out my age on the platform. I need to remind everyone that I'm like the great-granddad of YouTube at this point.
I have a feeling that there are many blueprints. Many of these people have followed that similar blueprint. Someone had to do it, right? Now, I have to ask you how you're able to do it with 3 channels as opposed to 1. I feel like 1 is hard enough, but now you've split. You have 2 over 10 million subscribers, a third one creeping up on 3 million. How do you deal with that?
It's certainly a lot. I mean, our ability to do that is really reflected in the fact that we've been able to find other great theorists, people who have a similar mindset as ours, and we're able to uplift other creators, so that way they now have a platform through our channels to show off their creativity, be they editors, be they writers, researchers for us, digital designers helping out with thumbnails or like digital assets that we use in videos. It started with me in my closet recording solo, right? And it was 100 hours of my time every single week.
Oof.
But we fortunately gotten to a size and scale at this point where, we have a team of about like 20 to 30 just super talented creatives who all work together, all have this vision and this love of educating and gaming and nerding out over all your favorite things.
Now, are you all based in the same place, or are you spread out over the country?
Not at all. No, we are everywhere from North Carolina to California to Iceland to Australia. Wow. Yeah, I think the only continent we don't have covered is Africa. I don't think we have anyone currently in Africa right now, but pretty much everywhere else is represented.
That's amazing.
And it's a great group, but I'll be honest with you, there are some people on the team who I've never actually seen the faces for. We do a lot of Discord calls, we do a lot of Google Hangouts, planning meetings, things like that, and some people just don't turn on their camera. We're convinced that one of our editors is actually a sentient AI. He's incredibly talented, and he's able to, edit just huge amounts of video very, very quickly and very, very skillfully. And we've never seen his face. He barely talks on the calls, but he's there and he does amazing work, and we're happy to work with him, but never seen him. So we're convinced that he's just a computer and he's hiding his identity the whole time.
His name's not Hal, is it?
No, close. Dan. So
oh no.
Equally suspicious. Three letters.
Is his first name is it hidden first name Shodan? Yikes.
Yeah, right.
You're all dead.
I think that Hal, after he was exposed, had to rebrand. Like, oh, they're on to me. They are on to me. I need to rename myself. I am Dan.
I am Dan now. So let's talk a little bit before we get more into your specific channels. Let's get into the event happening this weekend. YouTube Game On. 60 top creators, 400 million subscribers. The stats are out of this world. Featured games include Among Us, Fall Guys, Fortnite, Friday Night Funkin', Grand Theft Auto 5, and more. I'm curious what you specifically will be doing. I noticed there is a particular game there that is not on my list. I'm afraid to say it to you. I don't want to cause you to convulse in a seizure. I think you know what I'm talking about. So what exactly will you be doing as part of this event, and do you know when? So if people want to see you specifically, when that's going to happen.
So actually, of all the things that you listed out, you didn't list off any of the things that I'm involved in. I'm involved in multiple segments throughout the whole piece, which is great. So I'm kind of one of those through lines, for better or worse. So you'll be seeing a lot of me. Fair warning. But the stuff that I'm touching actually is really exciting. So one of the segments I'm involved with that's really innovative is it's called Queen of Crosswords. And basically what it is we found a world champion crossword puzzle solver, and we're pitting that person live against the chat of YouTube to solve basically speed run a crossword. And thanks to a partnership that YouTube has done with Planet Crossword, the chat is actually enabling, just by typing in answers in the chat, it auto-populates in real time into the puzzle board that you're going to see on screen. And so the question ultimately comes down to who can speedrun a crossword puzzle better, a world champion crossworder or the entire collective hive mind of the internet.
Wow. It has a Twitch plays Pokemon sort of edge to it, but it's YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so.
I hope someone's moderating those comments, because I feel like there could be a lot of pitfalls in just letting YouTube guess whatever words they want.
We'll see. Yeah, remains to be seen.
So that's pretty cool, and it's more than just, I guess, gaming as well. Obviously, it will be using a video game version of a crossword, obviously. But when I first read this, I feel like it was just strictly video games. But now it sounds like you're going to be doing more than just that. Are there more examples on the program that you're aware of?
Yeah, so I think what's really cool about this is, crosswording, obviously not a traditional video game, but it's allowing the audience to interact live and play games with their favorite creators. And I think that's, what I'm most excited about as far as my segment and the event as a whole, right? This isn't just I'm sitting back and watching my favorite creators in the gaming space, play games like they would normally do, or maybe do like a somewhat unique challenge. This is actually me as an audience member affecting the way that this show goes, affecting what's happening on screen, and in a lot of cases, playing the games right alongside my favorite creators and being an active participant in a way that I wouldn't be able to in a normal YouTube live stream or a normal YouTube event.
Yeah, and I feel like also too that could pull in some of the parents who may be watching with their kids, or older folks who may be want to go on YouTube, see that this is being advertised, and check it out. If they're playing crossword, it might be a little bit more of an easier entry point.
Yeah, and also that actually, that's a nice segue to some of my other segments. So 2 of my other segments are, again, non-traditional gamers being exposed to or introduced to gaming experiences, right?
Okay.
So one of mine is some older individuals being introduced to the world of Poppy Playtime.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, so it's not the animatronic game that shall not be named.
Yeah.
But it is haunted toys coming to life and jump scaring you. So we'll see how some more seasoned veterans might react to exploring the haunted hallways of Poppy's Playtime. We also have another really cool segment where we're taking bomb squad experts, so people who are professionals who live and work and have decades of experience diffusing live bombs, and we're introducing them to the world of Don't Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which I don't know if your listeners are aware, but that's basically a VR puzzle game. Where someone is in a VR headset, they're presented with a bomb, but really it's just a series of puzzles on a big cube, and they have to communicate what they're seeing in the VR headset to a person outside who has the instruction manual on how to solve those puzzles and defuse the bomb safely.
Interesting.
And so that segment I'm really excited about because it's really going to put to the test these bomb defusal experts, their ability to communicate, their courage under pressure, which obviously they're going to do really great at, but also just like insert them into a world that us gamers are very comfortable with, but how are they going to react to that? So a lot of my segments are experimental. They're playing along, playing very interesting or unique games, things that you wouldn't get to see normally on YouTube or especially on my channels, happening live in real time.
That's cool. Now I have to ask, are you playing Street Fighter 6 under the threat of eating hot wings? Is that something you're in?
Sadly, that is not me. That might be Sean Evans from Hot Ones. I'm not sure what he's
hosting it, but it doesn't say who's actually in. A viewer selected players.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think I played, what was it, a year or 2 ago? I played Street Fighter 6 against Conan O'Brien for an event that he was a part of.
Oh,
and I had drunk goggles and I had hot sauce and stuff. I think that's where my Street Fighter career began and immediately ended.
That makes a ton of sense. So yeah, this sounds like a really cool event with a lot of surprising things. Like you said, we didn't talk about any of the games that are listed in this press release that I have that you're actually going to be a part of. How long is this event running? Do you know? Like, is it a full?
I believe it's 2 hours in total,
2 hours.
And then, but I believe there's a second airing of it, or kind of like a second version of it that's going to go live for a different region of the U.S. or different region of the world. So that way, people we want everyone to have the experience with it. We want everyone to be able to play along in real time without having to stay up till like 3 a.m.
Sure.
If you're out in Europe or whatever. So there's going to be a couple iterations of it where they can tune in at different times.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, so that is this Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern here in the city. Again, if you're listening to this episode on the radio, as soon as you hear the final song, the outro song, go check out YouTube, the whole thing. MatPat and all those will be there. So getting back into your channels real quick, I have to ask you, how many times in a public setting, if you're at a convention, if you're meeting people, do people say to you, hey, I have this great theory, and how do you deal with that? I imagine it's the first thing out of their mouth.
Usually it's like, hey, you're that guy. Actually, that's the first thing. Are you that guy?
That guy from that place?
Yeah. That's usually how it goes. You can tell too. It's weird. You get this like sixth sense of like, oh, that person recognized me. Like, oh, immediately, as it's like a prolonged glance or like a moment of recognition and the switch flips or whatever. And then it's just kind of like waiting for them to kind of bridge the gap. Because you don't want to be like, oh, I see that you've recognized me. You watch YouTube? because that's me.
Imagine?
So you let them kind of like have their moment, like gather up their courage or whatever, and then ask. But usually it's like, oh, are you on? Do I know you from somewhere? Are you that YouTube guy? And it's like, yeah. And then it's like, then the first comment is always, I thought you looked familiar, but then I heard your voice, and that's the thing that gave me.
Oh no!
It's always the voice, always. I'll have
dear.
people coming at me from like across the room, where they're like, I heard your voice down the hallway, or it's like, okay. But then immediately it follows up with like, hey, have you ever thought about doing Pikmin, or have you ever thought about doing Ace Attorney or whatever? So yeah, it is. I would say probably about 75% of the conversations and 75% of the times that we're stopped is usually like a theory pitch attached to it.
Now that actually segues perfectly into my next question. Are there games that you either are very intrigued in but can't find the theory on, or that you would like to return to someday? There's another game that I don't think I want to name. Here's a clue: the Pope. So I don't know if I want to get into that one.
Sure.
So, but is there something swirling around in your head right now that maybe is coming up in the pipeline very soon, or if there's like if just something that you really want to touch on to?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think I mentioned Pikmin. Pikmin is a game that it's a Nintendo property. I love that game. I love the aesthetics of it. I think it's a great franchise. Unfortunately, never really caught like super big on with fan bases, and so that's one that I've always tossed around doing an episode on. Probably will at some point, just looking for the right opportunity. There's always like new stuff coming down the pipeline that's a bit more timely. So that's always one. I've always had a couple pet theories about Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've had a couple pet theories about those, but unfortunately I like missed the boat. Like I came up with them too late. And by that point, kind of the internet had moved on. So I'm waiting for Rockstar to maybe do something with the franchise at some point in the future, or like kind of reinvigorate interest around it, because I've been holding on to these for years at this point.
Sure.
And then I would say, what else? There's a couple for a while too. I really wanted to do one on Pauline versus Princess Peach. So for all the hardcore nerds out there, you'll know that in the original Donkey Kong, that's where Jumpman kind of gets his like first big appearance. Jumpman, who we later known as Mario, and he's rescuing.
Who was a sociopath? That's another story.
There might be some lore there. At one point he is shown to whip Donkey Kong. I'm just saying. I just researched the games.
You just found it.
I connect dots. That's all. But in this Donkey Kong game, he's rescuing a girl with blonde hair and a pink dress, and her name is not Princess Peach or Toadstool. She is Pauline. And for years, I wanted to come up with a theory that Pauline and Princess Peach are one and the same person. Especially now that Mario Odyssey has come out, you see Pauline and she's a brunette. She looks completely different from what she did in her original iteration. So I was trying to come up with a theory for years around that. Never could really find enough evidence points to like make it a compelling narrative. So that one's been kind of like a pet theory of mine. That's just my own personal headcanon back there. But so there's a lot for the amount of bad theories that I've come up with. There are even worse ones that just sit on the shelf in the background.
One of these days, you should just like release the notebook of all these different theories.
The rejected theories.
You could make it a book. It's a
good idea. I like that. I'm writing that down now.
Theorymerch.com.
Thanks for the shameless plug.
Yes. So how, when you're developing a theory, I know you've done some where all three channels are involved, right? Mm-hmm. Like the KFC comes to mind. So how is it harder to develop one for all three at the same time? Is that your goal? Or do you come up with one and then realize, wait, this could work for game theory. This could work for food theory. Let's do a collaboration. Where does that kind of idea process go?
Well, I like that you call out the KFC series, because that one actually won us a Streamy, which is wacky. Yeah, that was an award-winning episode of our channels, which was a three-way crossover talking about KFC and fried chicken.
How about
and
places life takes you.
Like, the greatest insult of all is that it wasn't sponsored at all. It was just like,
I'm
going to do a KFC crossover weekend across all three channels for no apparent reason. No, I mean, really what it boils down to is we have, we're always, me and the writing staff and the research staff, all of us get together every single week, and we're brainstorming ideas. We're tossing out like what's new, trendy, what are people playing, what are we playing, what news articles or scientific articles have we read that could inspire things. So we really pull from a lot of different sources when it comes to inspiration for these episodes. And every once in a while, an idea, like someone will toss out an idea of like, oh, we're going to cover this game that has a topic about cannibalism. And it's like, okay, we can talk about the lore of the cannibalism game over there, but wait a minute, on food, hasn't anyone knows like, are human bodies nutritious? Or like, hey, if I was starving, could I eat my own shoe? Like you hear that a lot of times, so maybe that's cool. And wait a minute, but there's cannibalism in movies like, you know, Soylent Green, where, you know, Soylent Green is people, this and all of a sudden you have this like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like that's a fun collaboration weekend where all 3 episodes can all kind of like cross over with each other and talk about this like really random topic of cannibalism, right? I think we did an M&M's crossover weekend one time. We did I think we've done 2 cannibalism weekends actually. It's been such a popular content vertical for us. So great stuff there. But you know, that, I mean, that's the fun of it, right? That's the cool thing about YouTube is the fact that, you know, you're able to produce whatever you want and whatever is creatively interesting to you.
Sure.
You know, you go to TV and you'd be like, hey, I want to talk about this really fascinating visual novel game where, you know, you play as the Baba Yaga, and the Baba Yaga in myth is a cannibal, right? And so by the end of the game, if you put the pieces together, you discover that, oh, you're this mythological character that consumes other people, right? And so you wouldn't be able to talk about that, let alone do like a 3-part series across 3 different vertical channels, all uniting around this one topic. And it's cool. And it lets us be able to constantly stay fresh, constantly innovate, constantly like find and expose our audiences to things that they might not have been aware of before.
Nice.
And so part of our job is, concocting cool narratives and cool theories for, you know, the entertainment and education of our viewers. But the other half of it is like, we just see ourselves as like, hey, this is a cool thing, a cool topic, a cool game, movie, whatever. Let us expose you to it. Let us introduce you to it because we think you're going to have a really good time with it.
Yeah. Now, a couple like rapid fire questions to get you out of here. First of all, where's the Bluey theory?
We're currently working our way through Paw Patrol. Dead PJ Masks.
Oh,
Bluey,
interesting.
You bring that up and you joke. Bluey, I actually asked my kid this morning, Ollie, he's 4. I asked him, hey, I've heard a lot of good things about this Bluey show. Do you want to check out Bluey? And he's like, no, I'm on Paw Patrol. So, you know, I'm like, okay, we'll do Paw Patrol. But one day, Bluey's going to be coming.
Listen, I'm not recommending Bluey for him. I'm recommending Bluey for you.
Great. Awesome. Yes. I enjoy the kids programming more than he does at this point.
And this one, they know it. They know awesome. It. So they're waiting for you. Secondly, exposing people to indie games. I wouldn't have heard of Poppy Playtime if it wasn't for you. I wouldn't have heard of Cooking Companions if it wasn't for you. And the other one that you just did, the name is eluding me, with the little girl and the VHS tapes.
Amanda the Adventurer.
That's it. Yep. Do you find a certain sort of pride in bringing attention to these crazy indie horror games that people then blow up and make really popular?
Oh, very, very much so. I mean, it's one of the best parts of the job, honestly. Like there's 2 best parts of the job. Three. One is getting to give a job and a life to creators who might not have found those opportunities otherwise, you know, so bringing them as a part of Team Theorist. Second is when people tweet at me and say like, hey, I was able to pass my physics test because I learned about the physics of Mario's jump from your videos, or Minecraft Diamond Armor from you guys. So like that's awesome. And then the third one is exactly what you just said, which is, you know, finding that small independently created YouTube channel or that small 1 or 2 man team game that was developed and, you know, might be a couple hour experience or whatever, but like to put a spotlight on it, get other people excited about it, get people talking about it and interested. So that way, hey, these creators who would have had a hard time finding an audience for their game, their YouTube channel, their content anyway, now they have a spotlight. Hopefully other people kind of pick it up and run with it and go from there. But it's, you know, that's awesome. Like, if I'm fortunate enough to have a platform. YouTube has been fortunate for me to be able to build a platform for myself, which is amazing. So if I can share that with other people who, you know, deserve it, who are doing good work out there and who are, you know, doing their best to kind of like put interesting, exciting stuff out there into the world, like it's a great part of my job. It's something that I pride myself on for sure.
And then finally, what sort of theories do you find yourself more? I mean, I'm sure you have a love for all of your theories. It's that you can't pick your favorite child after all, but do you find lore theories more like invigorating when you're doing the research, or like the physics of Mario's jump? Or I always go back to the Mega Man one where Dr. Light was wrong, and you show like the DMZ between stuff where you can incorporate real life history, physics, science, that sort of thing. So is it strictly lore, or is it a little mixture of both that makes you more invigorated?
Honestly, it's that. It's the mixture of both. You say I can't pick my favorite children, but I definitely can. Whether or not I should.
Ollie, don't listen.
Yeah, right. No, cover yours. No, like looking at the theories, one series that we've done that's always stood out to me was we did a two-parter looking at how Princess Rosalina and Princess Rosalina and Princess Peach, how Princess Rosalina is Peach's daughter, and if you look at the lore of Mario and a lot of these games, that Princess Peach is probably dead at a certain point in the timeline, and her daughter Rosalina has been launched into space and lives on to carry on the legacy or whatever. That those two episodes are, to this day, I think one of my all-time favorite theories, because you're tapping into lore from the games. We're tapping into international translations of the games, which is really cool. But then you're also tapping into some of the science stuff. We talk about genetics and eye color and hair color and things like that, where we're talking about relativity and space and physics in that episode. And so it's those episodes where you're able to pull in from like 4 or 5 different sources, real life science and deep lore research into the franchise itself, and just like all of that combined into what is a really compelling theory, a really compelling narrative, and just like something that's educational, fun, and at the end of the day, you're like, maybe Peach is dead, and that like it gets you to reevaluate the stuff that you take for granted in all your favorite media, and that's exciting. Like if I can inspire you to go back and play Mario Galaxy again under the thought that maybe Peach is dead at this point in time, that's cool. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. So YouTube Game On this Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out MatPat as a through line throughout the entire show. Also, if you want his content, the game theorists, the film theorists, and the food theorists, cheesesteak show. You think I could say food? All kicking it, all doing great right now. What do you have coming up next in the pipeline for each one, if you're willing to say?
Oh man, let's see. For game theory, actually, we've got a Poppy Playtime one coming up this weekend.
Excellent.
So talking about Chapter 3, which is set to launch.
Cool.
Film theory, we just covered Stranger Things. We're actually doing an expose on Elmo. From Sesame Street. Expose on Elmo and Sesame Street and his relationship with a pet rock. Which is contentious.
Fantastic meme.
Yep, very excited about that one. So we're diving into that one. And on food theory, we just unlocked the secret recipe for the pink sauce. And we're looking at generational differences of tipping habits. So, are boomers or millennials or Gen Z, who's the best tipper?
That is fascinating. That's the kind of content you will get on the Theorist Network of channels. MatPat, Matthew Patrick, thank you so much for your time. Good luck. Have fun this weekend. And for your sake, I hope you don't have to eat any hot wings.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coming up after the break, we talk about everything from Gamescom Opening Night Live 2022, from the games that we knew about to the games that we certainly did not. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode 109. Another major thank you to MatPat, Matthew Patrick of the Game Theorists, or the Theorist Network, for coming to hang out with me, talking about YouTube Game On and his multiple channels. As was hopefully very clear, I've been watching his content for a very, very long time. Cannot recommend it enough. In the Game Theorists' case, there's 11 years of content to go back and watch. So if you don't have time for all of it, I understand. But I would recommend you go and check out at least the 2-part Rosalina theory that he mentioned on the show, because it is probably his best set, if not one of the best that he has ever done. But moving on now to the second topic of the show. I know I said after the MatPat interview that we were going to talk about Gamescom, but I'm actually going to push that to the end of the show. That'll be our third segment. And instead, let's get into a esports round the world roundup sort of thing. So we're going to talk about 4 different esports, big esports happenings that have happened in the last 2 weeks. And then we'll get into, some specific things about certain teams, some surprising results, and I'll look forward to one coming up in the next couple of days. First and foremost, we'll start where we always start. Let's go to the Overwatch League. Yes, that's Summer Showdown has finally begun. It began last weekend after a 3-week hiatus, I believe, from the Mid-Season Classic. If you recall, your Fusion finished 4th in that midseason classic, the best finishing team from the Eastern region, so things to be happy about. I'm not happy about that length of time to get back into things, but what are you going to do, I suppose? But we have some standings for the Summer Showdown based on that first weekend of play. Now, a couple of all the action this week starts Friday. So if you're listening to this when the podcast goes down, some of these things will be different. And if you listen to it on the radio play at 3 p.m. Eastern, again, some things will have changed. But as I'm sitting here right now on Thursday night, in the Summer Showdown qualifiers, in the Western region, the San Francisco Shock and the Dallas Fuel are tied at 4-0, with San Francisco having a slight edge, having having lost 2 less maps, map differential being +9 to +7, with the Washington Justice, the Toronto Defiant sitting cleanly at 3rd at 3-1, and then Washington Justice, Vancouver Titans tied in 4th with 2 wins apiece. London Spitfire also at 2 wins apiece, but they have 1 less map differential. And then Atlanta and Houston rounding out the top 8. So San Francisco doing what San Francisco does, excelling at Overwatch. Dallas being up there at 4-0 is pretty normal as well. But Vancouver, tied for 4th in the standings, would qualify for the Western Summer Showdown tournament if it were only 1 week of qualifiers. That's pretty impressive. I have to say that I love when a team bounces back and gets their feet under them again. It is also very weird to see the LA Gladiators, who won the midseason classic, the international tournament, sitting at 0-4 in a -6 differential. Over on the eastern side, Shanghai and Seoul both 2-0. Chengdu and Philadelphia, your Fusion, both at 1-1. The tie being broken in favor of Chengdu because they have a 0 map differential, where we have a -2. And then for Guangzhou, LA Valiant, and Hangzhou round out the rest of the standings there. So you're probably wondering how a team like the LA Gladiators could go from winning the midseason classic all the way to 0-4 in the beginning of the Summer Showdown. Is there some sort of cooldown period? Are they starting to, do they think, well, we won, so we can take one tournament off and our standing will still be good for the entire season? I actually think, and the internet would, the reaction to the Overwatch League in the first week of Summer Showdown qualifiers will back me up on this. I think it's a very uniquely esports problem that the Overwatch League is facing, and that is an abrupt change to the meta, or the overall meta strategies of the league, thanks to the way that the game is made up. The reason for that is there's a brand new hero, the tank called Junker Queen, has been added to the game for the Summer Showdown, and she's immediately disrupting everything. So there's been calls that she's overpowered. Her ultimate ability negates the other team's ability to heal, which is a big thing. So, again, this is not something you would find in normal traditional sports. It's very much an esports problem. They don't change up the rules halfway through an NFL season, for example. And they're not really changing the rules here, but the complexion of the game changes with this new hero. It's sort of in the vein of if a high-profile star on a team is injured in the beginning of the season or is suspended for whatever reason and then comes back in 6 or 7 games, 8 games into the season in the NFL, for an NFL example, and how the team's chemistry changes. Except this is one character that affects every team and not just the one team that they're from. Again, a very uniquely esports problem, but you kind of have to find the middle ground with the character before you refine and things like that. So her being so overpowered in her first go in Overwatch League kind of makes sense, because you don't know where she sits in when it comes to the other tanks in the game. She's the first one that was designed for 5v5 play, which is much different than 6v6, which the other tanks were designed for, with the exception of Doomfist. So they have to figure out the meta, and the Summer Showdown will be that. So it really is unpredictable where these standings could go from here. I could be recording the show next week for episode 110, talking about how San Francisco, who was 4-0 in week 1, went 0-4 in week 2. It is a possibility. Do I think it's going to happen? No, absolutely not. But it is a definite possibility, just because of the unpredictable nature of the meta. Now, Blizzard has already said that there will be a patch toning down some of Junker Queen's abilities in time for the next Countdown Cup, the next set of in-season tournament. She will stay the same throughout the Summer Showdown, so get used to it while you can. And the Junker Queen that we see in the Countdown Cup will be the Junker Queen that launches with the full game as the launch date approaches. So, get used to it while you can. Enjoy it while you can, Junker Queen fans, because it's not going to last for much longer. Real quick, looking at the full season stats after the mid-season tournament and the first week of Summer Showdown qualifiers. Your Fusion currently sit in 4th in the East with 10 points, a exact 7-7 record win-loss, 14 maps played, 14 matches played, a -1 differential. So as middle of the road as it gets, which in the East, not a big deal. As you saw in the Mid-Season Classic, they could be able to advance past the other teams based on talent alone. The standings aren't really clear as to the entire complexion of the Eastern region, and there will be a chance at the end of the year, if it's like last season, that even if they fall 5th or 6th, they could sneak into the final playoffs through the play-ins or qualifiers or whatever they decide to do. So, yep, we are 4th in the East right now. Seoul sits in 1st with Shanghai in 2nd. They have the same record, but Seoul has only lost 13 maps all year to Shanghai's 18. That's crazy. The fact that they've lost 14 less maps than your Fusion. That's something to behold. However, they just made a huge trade and they got rid of a couple of players, so their team complexion could be changing too. As for your Fusion, this weekend, 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, so if you're listening to this when the podcast drops, you'll be able to check out the match the next day at the same time, 9 a.m. If you're listening to this on the radio at 3 p.m. Eastern, the match has already passed, so go back and watch the video on demand. And then Saturday 9 a.m. versus Shanghai, Sunday 6 a.m. versus Guangzhou, which I assume most will catch the video on demand after they wake up. So plenty to look forward to in the Overwatch League. Your Fusion still moving on here, going through the Summer Showdown, but we'll see what happens from there. Moving on now to a preview of something that is coming up in the esports world, the championships for the Valorant Champions Tour. Just want to go over the format and the bracket for those who may not be aware. So the way that this works is we're going to have groups, a group stage, and then I think the top 2 teams or top 3 teams, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teams will advance from these 16. Not entirely sure where they're going to get seated. I don't quite remember. I'm going to have to look that up while we're doing this. But I want to go through the matches in each group that you'll see and which way I think they're going to go, just based on the research that I did before the show. So Group A is Paper Rex, number 1 team in the APAC. Edward Gaming, the last chance qualifying team from East Asia, and the current defending League of Legends world champions, which is interesting. Leviathan, which is a LATAM team, got in on circuit points. And Team Liquid, who is a last chance qualifier from the EMEA. So 4 teams from 4 different regions. I do think Paper Rex runs away with this group, but I also think that either Edward or Leviathan can sneak into the bracket from that group. Paper Rex definitely coming in, if you ask me. Group B sees our first NA team, Optic Gaming, also with Boom Esports out of the APAC, the last chance qualifier there. Zeta Division, the Japanese circuit points winner, and Loud, the Brazilian circuit points team there. I think Zeta Division is going to be a strong one here, and I think Optic Gaming obviously has a chance to move on as well. They're a very strong team too. But that's where I think that's going to sit there. In Group C, we have Fun Plus Phoenix, number 1 out of the EMEA, another name you might recognize if you're into League of Legends. Crew Esports, the the SA Last Chance. So they're in the Brazilian South American region. South American Last Chance qualifiers. Crew Esports there. XSET from the NA, and Xerxia, I think is how you say that, from the APAC, number 2 in APAC circuit there. So XSET is number 2 in North American circuit points, with Optic being first. I think they have a chance to get out of this region as well, especially since they're playing Xerxia in that first match. And then from there, I think Fun Plus is going to be your Group C winner as well. So XSET and FPX coming out of there. And then Group D, we have DRX from Korea, the winner of the Korean circuit. Furia Esports, a last chance qualifier from South America as well. Fnatic, which comes second place from the EMEA, Fun Plus being first. And 100 Thieves, the last chance from North America. I'm going to go with Fnatic and DRX here, not in that particular order. And then if I had to go through the bracket and who I think is going to win from the teams that I chose, it is 8 teams. There's a lower bracket, so the loser's bracket. Yeah, sure. So I said Paper Rex and Leviathan. I said Optic and Zeta. I said Fun Plus and XSET, and then I said DRX and Fnatic. Honestly, I do think this is going to be Paper Rex's year. I think Paper Rex is, every time I look into Valorant, I'm not going to say I'm an expert or anything like that, but every time I check in on Valorant and what's going on around the world and stuff like that, Paper Rex has just been in front of my face the entire time. This year alone, they were first place in February in Stage 1 Challengers from Malaysia and Singapore. They were first place in the APAC Stage 1 Challengers. They were fourth at the Masters in Reykjavik. They were first in Stage 2 Challengers in Malaysia and Singapore. First again in Stage 2 Challengers in APAC. And then the runners-up of the Stage 2 Masters in Copenhagen, losing to FPX in the finals 3-2. Beating Optic, beating Fnatic, teams they may see on the way there. But I do think this could be a revenge situation for Copenhagen, where they could take out Fun Plus in the end. But Fun Plus also very strong. Their recent results, obviously they won Stage 2 Masters. They were second place in EMEA Stage 2 Challengers, first place in Europe Stage 2 Challengers and EMEA Stage 1 Challengers, beating G2 and Fnatic. So they're a strong team as well. That's another one you could probably look for in the final. And as for the 3 teams out of North America, Optic Gaming, obviously first ranked. You would expect them to be the ones to do the best. And honestly, I agree with that, but also, too, XSET is an interesting team as well. Optic's recent matches have not gone well. They won in Copenhagen. They got to the second round, I believe, before losing to Fun Plus Phoenix. They went 0-2 in those Masters, actually, in the tournament, losing to Paper Rex and FPX. Don't see them really going further than that. However, XSET in the North American side has been very successful this year. First in the Winter Championships of Nerd Street Gaming and the Summer Championships here in Philadelphia for Nerd Street Gaming. They were fourth in the Stage 1 Challengers, but first in Stage 2 in June, beating Optic 3-1, and then coming in 7th place at Copenhagen, losing to Leviathan. So XSET might be one to think about, but as far as the American region teams, I do think Optic will get the furthest in the tournament. Do I think they're going to win? No. My money is, like I said, on Paper Rex with Fun Plus Phoenix as a backup, but Optic Gaming is certainly interesting as far as the teams that are concerned coming out of the North American region. From Valorant, something that hasn't happened yet, we go back in time a little bit to the Rainbow Six Siege Berlin Major. A fantastic tournament. I keep saying this on this channel, and I will continue to say it for as long as I can. Rainbow Six Siege is one of the most underrated esports that there is. Every time I watch them, I am enthralled by what I see. The matches are always intense and fun to watch, and the way that they present it, the way that it's shown on the live streams on Rainbow Six Esports YouTube channel is just very, very interesting. Absolutely love it. Highly suggest that you start watching it if you have not done so already. So the way that this played out was in the group stages. Group A, XSET, again, we hear from XSET and the Rainbow Six, which is another American esports organization. Some of these teams, you may hear a name and hear that they're from a different country than you would expect. That's just where their teams are based. XSET came out of Group A, 5 wins and 1 overtime win, so undefeated in the Group A, with Rogue coming out 3 wins, 1 loss, and 2 overtime wins. Ninjas in Pajamas, which is just a great name, and Dan Wom Gaming, unfortunately, on the outside looking in from Group A. Group B, G2 Esports and FaZe Clan. FaZe Clan, who plays out of Brazil in this game, got out of the first region. Got out of Group B, excuse me. W7M Esports, which is a Rainbow Six team out of Brazil. And Wolves Esports, which is a team out of England, is a esports division of English football team, the Wolverhampton Wanderers. They got out of the Group C group, and then Group D was Furia Esports out of Brazil and Elevate out of America. So America, a decent showing, 2 teams in the final 8, but ultimately this was a EU tournament won by Rogue, who beat FaZe Clan in the finals in what was an absolutely thrilling final. FaZe taking the first round 8-7 in overtime, then Rogue answering right back 7-4. FaZe again taking it overtime 8-7. Rogue winning 7-5 on map 4, and then map 5 was an 8-7 overtime thriller in favor of Rogue. Fantastic Rainbow Six Siege. Go back and watch the video on demand on YouTube. Hearing the crowd erupt for that match, especially in Berlin, Rogue being an EU team. I don't think they're located in Berlin. I think they're actually located somewhere else. I could be wrong about that. They could be a home German team, and if that's the case, it makes it even cooler. But yeah, awesome stuff. Go check that out. Go check out Rogue winning on YouTube. Rainbow Six Esports is the YouTube page. It's very, very good. I think you'll have a blast watching it. And then finally, let's talk about some local fighting game esports. Summer Jam 2022, run by my pals, friends of the show at Big E Gaming, was last weekend. Kicked off without a hitch. Played several games throughout the weekend in over there in Cherry Hill. Street Fighter V teams and singles, Melty Blood Type Lumina, Dragon Ball Fighter Z, Ultra Street Fighter 4, Ultimate Marvel 3, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, Soul Calibur 6, King of Fighters 15, DNF Duel, Guilty Gear Strive, and the main event was Tekken 7, because this was a Tekken World Tour, I think, Prime event, or like the top tier event for Tekken 7. So that was the main event of Summer Jam this year. Cuddlecore winning, one of the top players right there for Counter Logic, and Red Bull, I believe, too. She does some stuff for female. This is going to sound, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, or you know, one of those, a woman winning. I just like it. I like seeing women in esports succeed. I think there should be more of them, and the more that people like Cuddlecore and the Purple Sharpie, who I don't think she plays anymore, but her commentary is excellent. The more they are present and seen and visible and successful in this case, it will bring more girls and women to the scene, and that could never be a bad thing. So her winning is awesome for many reasons. A, because she's great. B, because it may encourage some girls or women who may not have wanted to try esports before for many unfortunate reasons to break down that door and maybe say, you know what, yeah, let's give this a shot. She can do it. Let's see what I can do too. It's just awesome. So congratulations to Cuddlecore in the Tekken 7 tournament. Another great final as well against Shadow 20Z. Go check that out. There should be, I think, Biffiteki or KPB Live. I'm not exactly sure which YouTube channel will have it, but check it out. It's definitely worth looking into. Even Bandai Namco might have it as well. Guilty Gear Strive won by Zippy using Kai. Street Fighter V won by Lost Prophet using Ken. And a great match. And the DNF Duel Striker was the winner this time, used by Sonic Soul. So all the results you can find on Event Hubs. A great event from what it sounds like. Not that I'm surprised, because Big E does good stuff all the time. I would have been there if I was not on vacation last weekend. Would have been a great time. for everyone. And finally, actually, I know I said FGC was going to be finally, but there's one esport in particular I would love to shed light on that was also kicking off last weekend in London, an esport you may not really think about when you think about esports, and that is Pokemon. The Pokemon World Championships were last week in the video game, in the trading card game, in Pokken Tournament, which is like a fighting game if you've never heard of it, and the Pokemon Unite, which is one of my favorite new games of the past year. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. Go check out those events. Go check out on Pokemon's official YouTube channel the strategy involved in the video game and the way the card game plays out. If you're a Pokemon fan at all, or if your child's a Pokemon fan, just go see what they can do. It really is fascinating. Watch these games that I grow up with turn into these massive esports. I could say that about all of them, but something about Pokemon in particular, the way that the Pokemon company handles it, the way that they present themselves, the way their live streams work, kind of like Rainbow Six Siege, or more kid-friendly action, is awesome. So make sure you check that out too. I do want to make sure I mentioned that before we ended this segment. So Pokemon World Championships was also very good viewing as well. The finals in the video game Sword and Shield, probably the final Sword and Shield competitive championship before Scarlet and Violet comes out in November. Definitely worth watching if you have a moment. So that's it. That's your esports roundup for this week. And we'll try and get into more of a deep dive on esports topics next week. I want to get into where the Fusion are after 2 weeks of the Summer Showdown, see where I think they're going to go for the rest of the season, but we'll get into that next week. Coming up after the break, we're going to review Gamescom 2022. The opening night live, we'll go through all the things that were announced there, and then we'll talk about a couple of games that weren't mentioned there, but should be on your radar if you're looking up stuff from the show. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode 109. Wrapping things up this week with Gamescom 2022. Going to talk about everything announced at Opening Night Live 2022 by Jeff Keighley. A great event featuring about 35, 36 games. Not exactly sure how many announcements, so we'll get into each one. Plus, I also want to talk about 3 games that were announced elsewhere or known about elsewhere that should be on your radar come the holiday season. First game announced at Opening Night Live was a game called Everywhere by a developer called Build a Rocket Boy. Not exactly sure what's going on here, but a lot of it's talking about blockchain, which always gets people, upset, worried about NFTs. So we'll see what happens with that game. Slated for a 2023 release. As we have talked about before on this show with Reggie Fils-Aimé in episode 100, blockchain technology on its own is not inherently bad. It's when people try to exploit it with crypto and NFTs and stuff like that where it gets a bad rap. But the actual blockchain technology could be interesting, and we'll see that in Everywhere, it sounds like, based on reading into the developer. Next up was a MMO, survival open world MMO in the Dune universe, Dune Awakening by Funcom. That's an interesting idea. Open world survival on that planet. Watch out for the worms. Hogwarts Legacy with a new trailer talking about the dark arts. That was very cool. New Tales from the Borderlands also announced. Tales from the Borderlands came out in 2015 by Telltale Games. Fantastic game. Absolutely loved it. And New Tales from the Borderlands is going to follow with that story. They're saying it's not going to be related, but I feel like it may be sort of related. There would be no reason not to reference the previous game. So we'll see what happens there. Word Song, former Bethesda Game Studio designer and Obsidian Entertainment alums, form a brand new studio called Something Wicked and announced Word Song. We'll get more on that. One of the most surprising announcements, which was unfortunately leaked right beforehand, ended up being the anchor of the show. So the second straight Jeff Keighley show where the big game at the end of the show leaks beforehand. Dead Island 2 is back. Originally announced at E3 2014. 8 years in the making. Game's coming out February 3rd. And it was an interesting trailer. Apparently there's a new gore engine that allows you to kill zombies in very disgusting ways. A couple of trailers have shown that off. That's interesting. Next, we have the Callisto Protocol, the horror game by Striking Distance Studios, made up of former Dead Space alums. Looks just like a new Dead Space, which is exactly what people have wanted for a very long time. It's not necessarily just Dead Space 4, but it's definitely something that we're looking forward to. Hoyoverse had 2 trailers here. Genshin Impact's 3.0, showing a new rainforest world, plus Honkai Star Rail, which is the next game, a brief teaser trailer there, not too much going on. Raw Fury showed off a card-based first shooter game, friends versus friends. So you get cards that give you abilities or certain ways to shoot or certain guns, and you use them in a multiplayer deathmatch sort of situation. Very interesting concept there. Excited to see more. We met some of the villains of Gotham Knights, including Mr. Freeze, Harley Quinn, and what looked to be like Clayface. A very interesting action game from the East, I believe a Chinese studio, making a game called Where Winds Meet. Had a Ghost of Tsushima sort of vibe to it. Action game, sword fighting, and bows. More of that, please. That looked like a very interesting title. I'm excited to learn more about it. Park Beyond, a amusement park builder and simulator from Bandai Namco. That was an interesting sort of trailer. If you remember, like Roller Coaster Tycoon and stuff like that. Lies of P, the Bloodborne-style action Dark Souls game. It's some sort of retelling of Pinocchio, hence the P. Got a new trailer. Got to see Geppetto for the first time. At least it was supposed to be Geppetto, I think. Phantom Hellcat by Ironbird Creations and publisher All In was an interesting 3D hack and slash. Goat Simulator 3 showed off a new gameplay trailer, which is just wacky and full of chaos. Love it. Return to Monkey Island gets a release date on PC and Switch. That game will be out September 19th, which is way sooner than I expected. But it's like, 2-3 weeks away until we're playing Monkey Island, which doesn't give me a lot of time to catch up on the older games before it does come out. Another very surprising announcement from the studio behind the Friday the 13th the game adaptation. So they made it where it was one player was Jason, the rest were teenagers trying to escape. They're building on that asymmetrical format, this time 3 versus 7, set in the universe of Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the 1988 schlocky cult classic horror gore film. Getting its own game where 7 players play as like teenagers or survivors, and 3 players play as the killer clowns, and whoever wins, survives. That whole thing. It's a very interesting concept there. Looking to see more of that. High on Life got a new trailer, a boss fight featuring the talking guns from that game. I have a feeling we'll be talking more about that on this show as early as next week. Wink, wink, hint, hint. Moving Out 2, sequel to the moving simulator Moving Out, which is a nice, chill, fun little happy-go-lucky sort of game. That's confirmed for 2023. The Lords of the Fallen, a sequel to Lords of the Fallen, good luck not confusing that, was announced. Another game 8 years in the making. I think it was originally announced in like 2015, 2016. Finally shown for the first time, due out next year. Stranded: Alien Dawn by the developers of Surviving Mars, another sort of planet survival simulator going on here, but this one is like colonists on a deadly alien world as opposed to just, surviving on Mars or something like that. Under the Waves, made by Parallel Studios and Quantic Dream. Not sure if this is going to be like a Quantic Dream narrative sort of thing or like an exploration game. Not really, don't know what direction that's going in yet, but an interesting trailer nonetheless. Sonic Frontiers was confirmed for November 8th. That's the open world Sonic game, which shares a lot of level design and motif with previous Sonic games. That should be pretty cool. Atlas Fallen by Focus Entertainment and Deck 13, action fantasy role-playing using sand to create weapons. That was an interesting trailer too. Thought that was cool. The Outlast Trials. If you never played Outlast or Outlast 2 and you like getting your pants scared off you, Outlast Trials is a multiplayer Outlast game, closed beta, scheduled for later this year. The company behind Subnautica Unknown Worlds announced basically digital Warhammer or digital mini statue sort of games called Moonbreaker. Looked right up my alley. I thought that was really sweet looking. Homeworld 3 got a brand new trailer. That's due the first half of 2023. Telltale's next game, based on the, I believe, Amazon Prime Video streaming series The Expanse, got its first trailer. I never watched The Expanse, so it didn't really, I wasn't really enthused about it, but still pretty cool. Dwarf Romantic coming to Nintendo Switch. It's a cute little strategy game on September 29th. Scars Above, a science fiction game from Prime Matter and Mad Head. That was an interesting trailer as well. Two non-actual video game announcements. First, Hideo Kojima, the world-famous developer for Metal Gear, most recently Death Stranding, is starting a podcast in September. And then a Pokemon car. Mini Cooper created a concept Pokemon car. And, yeah, electric, because Pikachu, car. One of the strangest announcements from Open Night Live, I think. But still, cool. Whatever. So as for the other 3 games that you should keep an eye on, first one, if you know me and you've listened to this show, you know that we have had people on the show, 2 separate folks from this company on the show to talk about this and other things. The first gameplay for AEW Fight Forever was at the THQ Nordic booth. People got to play it. Sounds very, very positive, very No Mercy style, mixed with some modern sensibility, so I'm excited for that. The Case of the Golden Idol by European studio Playstack. Same people who made Mortal Shell have pivoted to a 2D point-and-click mystery-solving game set in like the 17th, 18th century. Demo available now on Steam. What an interesting game this is. Just the way that you can put clues together, try and figure out what's going on. The way the game prompts you if you're doing well versus if you're not. Just a very cool concept. And I'm excited for more to come out. I don't know when they're shooting for. I don't think a release date was actually mentioned. Let's hope it's sometime in 2022. And then finally, the reason for a 2.5-hour metal concert in a convention hall towards the end of the night. Metal Hellsinger. I know I've talked about this game before on this show. It's basically Doom, first-person shooter Doom-style gameplay, but mixed with rhythm-based combat. So the more that you shoot in rhythm with the game, the more damage you'll do and the stronger you'll be. So definitely one that's on my radar. Demo is out now on all consoles, so you can try it for yourself if you haven't already. But yeah, definitely circle September 15th on my calendar because Metal Hellsinger is going to rock my socks off. I can guarantee it. So that's your Gamescom Opening Night Live 2022 recap, plus a couple other things to mention from that show. Still going on all weekend, so we might have some more news before the end of the weekend. I will cover that next week if anything huge should break. And then we have PAX West next week, so convention after convention. Convention season is back in full force, baby. You love to see it. And with that, we have reached the end of episode number 109 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every single week, if you're listening to my voice right now, you have reached the end of the episode. You have stuck with me throughout the entire hour, and I cannot thank you enough for allowing me to educate you, to entertain you, hopefully, in this endeavor every single week. Major thank you to MatPat, Matthew Patrick from the Game Theorist Network for coming on the show, talk about YouTube Game On. Looking forward to that event this weekend. That is Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time at youtube.com/gaming. I believe is where they're going to host that. But just search for YouTube Game On. I'm sure it will come up. And look for all the gaming zaniness that's going to happen within 2 hours in that broadcast. So for Cheesesteaks Controllers, for Fox PHL The Gambler, and all of us, I hope you have a fantastic week. And I hope you have an even better week right behind it. And we will be back next week, I promise this time next week, with more of the best in esports and gaming right here on Cheesesteaks and Controllers. Good night, everybody.